Republicans puss out on the debt ceiling again. Prices are sky high and it's all part of the plan. And Germany is going insane. This is Gene. You're listening to Dumbasses Talking Politics. Hey, this is Gene. Welcome back to Dumbasses Talking Politics. Well, great news. Day 3, I have survived without having to go to jury duty. Yay! And good news, I might be doing a podcast on Thursdays and Fridays now because Josie, I think I'm going to take a day off every week. I'm only going to do the podcast 4 days a week, but I'll take it off on a Wednesday. Josie is working now 5 days, Monday through Friday, and so she gets her weekends off. So that's awesome. My life is going really, really good. So let's get to the news. This might be a shorter podcast, but because I didn't really feel like doing too much. But here we go with the debt ceiling thing again. Congress has approved a $2.5 trillion debt ceiling increase. According to the New York Times, Democrats were united in support of a measure which passed the Senate 50-49, so no Republican voted for it. That's good. Along party lines on Tuesday afternoon, and then cleared the House in a 221 to 209 vote shortly after midnight on Wednesday. Republicans opposed the legislation en masse, with only one, Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, who's not really a Republican and is not running next year, so who gives a damn, voting in favor. Of course, the Democrats will scream that raising of the debt ceiling was bipartisan. Most people don't want the debt ceiling raised anymore, and we'll get to that later. The bill now heads to President Biden, who is expected to quickly sign it. The swift action came a week after party leaders announced a deal to establish a one-time fast-track process to increase the debt ceiling with a simple majority vote, instead of the 60 votes needed to move most legislation through the Senate with the filibuster. I'm kind of curious as to see what this deal was. Again, Joe Biden is screaming this as a huge victory. And I think I've talked about this in the past. I see this as a Republican failure. I think they should have filibustered this, and I think they should have forced the government to be responsible with the debt. Here's the problem with the debt ceiling. It's nonsensical. It makes no sense. Basically, we're paying off our credit card by raising the maximum balance on that credit card to make our credit card payment. Can you do that? You owe $1,000 on your credit card. Can you just call the credit card company and say, raise it to $1,500 so that you could pay off the credit card balance due that week? Yeah, of course you can't. And this is one of the reasons why I said, you know what, we need to hurt now. We need to hurt now. We need to not raise the debt ceiling and start taking responsibility for our national debt. So why do I say that? Let's take a look at our national debt. As of right now, our national debt is currently at $28.9 trillion. If you divide that by 100.5 million households in the United States that pay taxes, and the exact number is 100,424,240. And that doesn't include illegal aliens who don't pay any taxes. That comes up to $287,859 that each family will owe to pay off the national debt. Now, let's not forget, the government produces nothing. They make no money. They only spend money that they take from regular people. So when we look at this national debt, that national debt is not going to be paid off by the government. It's not going to be paid off by the president or the Senate or the House. It's us that is going to have to, we are going to have to pay off that debt. So when the government says they have to pay their bills, they don't typically say that. They say America has always paid their bills. It is literally the citizen that pays their bills. We pay for it. This is why I don't want the government raising the debt ceiling anymore. I want them to stop spending. Like us in real life, the government needs to be fiscally responsible. And there are going to be consequences. There's no question there are going to be consequences to this whole thing. And those consequences are going to happen whether or not we go into default now or we go into default 10 years from now. They're going to happen. That $287K is going to have to be paid by families. Either we do it or our grandkids will end up doing it. We are eventually going into default. Period. End of story. It's going to happen. And the more, just like your credit card, if you only pay the interest on your credit card and you keep using your credit card, the payment is just going to go up and you're going to have to pay more interest. And it's going to get to the point where you can only pay the interest, you can never pay the principal. That's what our government is doing right now. So I personally think we need to suck it up now. So how bad is this going to look? Well, we're going to default. We're going to have to cut our spending, which means we're going to have to cut down on programs that people might like or people are using. Things that come to mind would be Obamacare. Things that come to mind would be welfare, food stamps. Bureaucracies are going to have to be cut. I'm not necessarily thinking that's a bad thing. But what I think we're all going to dislike, and that is not talked a lot about in the United States, and I think it needs to be talked about, we could be looking at austerity. Now, what is austerity? Austerity is when our debtors actually tell us what we have to do for our economy so that we can get out of debt and start paying them. Who's our greatest debtor? You got it, China. Now, personally, I don't know why the Biden administration doesn't do this. We should be finding out where this pandemic is and say, considering they killed our economy in 2020, we should just say, you know what? The debt with you, China, it's forgiven. Because it cost us $10 trillion to recover from this pandemic. So screw you guys. You have just forgiven our debt because you guys screwed up. And China knows this because China will not cooperate with figuring out where this pandemic came from. We already know where the pandemic came from, and that's not conspiracy theory. You notice I'm saying a lot of that because the media is saying the opposite. They wanted to blame Trump for the pandemic. It wasn't Trump with the pandemic. I don't think he handled it very well, but nobody handled it very well. Trump had nothing to do with the pandemic. China did, but we're not blaming China for anything, and we're still sending our Olympic athletes to Beijing so that they can compete, even though Kamala Harris can't go. So I tell you what, this is what I'd rather do, and maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't. I'd rather suffer it now, because our kids are going to suffer it one way or another. And one way they'll suffer is through paying the unknown tax, the quiet tax, inflation. On Friday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed the consumer price inflation was up 6.8%. We talked about that. And that is the highest it's been in 30 years. 30 years, longer. Since 1982. So longer than 30 years. If you think that's bad, businesses are getting killed. It was found that wholesale prices are up a whopping 9.6%. What does that tell you? Businesses are losing money by just raising their rates by 6.8%. They're losing 3% on what they're doing. Ben Zeisloft of the Daily Wire had a list of products and where they are going up. And I think this is great because we say, oh, gas is up 50%, whatever. This is actually where they're up. And this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So let's take a look at these things. Gas up 58.1%. Used vehicles, used cars are up 31.4%. Hotels are up 25.5%. Meat, poultry, and fish up 13.1%. I think that's even, I don't know, I'd buy my meat. It seems like it's a lot higher than that. I know poultry hasn't increased as much as, let's say, beef. And fish hasn't gone up too much. But beef has gone up a lot. I think it's a lot more than 13.1%. Furniture and bedding, 11.8%. New vehicles, 11.1%. Domestic services, 10.2%. Jewelry, 6.7%. Electricity, 6.5%. Food, in general, 6.1%. They're talking about like processed food and stuff like that. Clothes, up 5%. Milk, up 4.6%, and fruits and vegetables up 4%. The AP reported it gets worse. I hate to tell you it gets worse, and this is what they're reporting here. 45% of American households report that recent price increases are causing the family some degree of financial hardship. 10% describe it as severe hardship affecting their standard of living, while 35% say hardship is moderate. Lower income households are most likely to have experienced financial hardship due to price increases. 71% of those living in households making less than $40,000 a year say that recent price hikes have caused their family financial hardship. That compares with 40% of those in middle income households and 29% of those in upper income households. So what is that saying? Inflation is hurting the poor. It's hurting people who need to make their dollar go further, and their dollar isn't going further. Their dollar is not valuable. They need their money to go further, and this is hurting. Remember, Joe Biden kept saying, I'm not going to raise taxes on anyone under $400,000. Inflation is a tax. Inflation is a tax. The Biden administration has absolutely no answers for this. At first they said the economy was getting better, and then the prices kept going up and people started bitching about it. Then they said that inflation was transitory, which means it's going to happen for a year and then it's going to go away. Now, including Janet Yellen, his Fed chairman, said that no, a lot of this is going to be permanent. Then he said it was fine because wages are going up. But wages turned out to be 3% behind inflation. So yeah, you're getting that $15 an hour job, or you got that $2 raise, but inflation for something that you usually buy is up $4. Well, Jen Psaki is coming up with a new excuse. Listen to her.
Go ahead.
There are several progressive groups and lawmakers who are increasingly vocalizing the idea that high inflation is being driven by corporate greed, including companies with high profits, some of whom have met at the White House with the president in recent months. Does the president endorse that idea? Does he think that corporate greed is the big driver of inflation right now?
Well, I think that the president thinks the way people across the country, American families, digest inflation is by price increases. And if you look at industry to industry, it's a little different. So, for example, the president, the Secretary of Agriculture have both spoken to what we've seen as the greed of meat conglomerates. That is an area where people go to the grocery store and they're trying to buy a pound of meat, 2 pounds of meat, 10 pounds of meat. The prices are higher. That is, in his view, and the view of our Secretary of Agriculture, because of, you could call it corporate greed, sure. You could call it jacking up prices during a pandemic. There are other areas where we've seen increases because of supply chain issues, and we're seeing those increases around the world as it relates to gas prices, oil supply, and things along those lines. So I would say there's some areas where we have seen corporations profit from the pandemic, and certainly the president would agree with that component. I don't know the full context of all of their remarks.
Okay, that's right. That's what it is. It's all greed. Big meat is greedy. The car industry is greedy. The agricultural industry is greedy. The dairy industry is greedy. What else is there? The furniture industry is greedy. Jewelry industry is greedy. The electrical industry is greedy. Everybody is greedy. Do you know who? It's all their fault. And do you know whose fault it's not? The Biden administration's fault. Not their fault. They had nothing to do with it. Okay, obviously there's some real problems with her argument here. Prices are not determined in greed. This is by greed. This is basic economics. They're determined by supply and demand. How much product do I have and how much demand is there for that product? If there is a high demand for a product like meat, but I can't get the meat, then I'm going to sell it for a higher price because I can't get the meat. The other problem is if prices are determined by greed, wouldn't there be that company out there who wants to make higher profits that would say that, okay, for example, you got Tyson Chicken, they sell your chicken for $2 a pound, but the chicken actually only costs 10 cents a pound, and everybody is paying 10 cents a pound for the chicken? Wouldn't there be that company that said, okay, we'll only make, 900% profit and we'll sell it for $1 a pound so that we can corner the market? Yeah, that's not what's happening. It's from the producers of the chicken that are raising the price of the chicken because they have to pay more to feed the chickens. That's what's happening. And they have to pay more to feed the chickens because they can't get the feed from the people that make the feed for the chickens. Everything is connected here. It is not one group that says, hey, we're just going to raise beef prices to $10 a pound. That's not happening. You have to pay. You have to put out capital to create the beef. And in a competitive market, in capitalism, this is why capitalism works, by the way. In a competitive market, you have to compete with all those other people that are providing meat or feed or whatever. Also, I get why you could say that the car industry is greedy. I get that. Toyota, those bastards. GMC, those bastards. But used cars have gone up in price. So what? The guy who's selling his car is asking for more money for those cars? I'm not kidding. Right by where I live, there's a place where they park cars, and you can buy a car. I saw a car with 150,000 miles selling for $4,500. I looked at it, I was like, you on crack? 150,000 miles? You want to sell this car for $4,500? They've gotten expensive. Everything has gotten expensive. Even when I'm selling something privately, it's gotten more expensive. If I want to buy from some guy off the street, it's gotten more expensive. Why? Because he knows he's going to sell his car to somebody. They're going to undercut him by $1,500. And they're going to sell it. If they undercut him by $1,500, then they're going to boost it up to $6,000. Maybe, give it a wash and check it. They got to check the cars. But they're going to sell that same car for $6,000, $7,000. He figures I'll sell it for $4,500. Everything has a relationship in an economy. And that's something this is something everybody, normal person knows, which is why when you hear Jen Psaki talk, she just sounds like she's out of touch. That she doesn't understand, no, we're actually dealing with this crap. I mean, Joe Biden's not dealing with it. He doesn't pay for anything. He doesn't pay for his turkey dinner on Christmas or Thanksgiving. The White House pays for it. He's not even paying for a fence that he's building around his property in Delaware. The government's paying for it. You're paying for it. I'm paying for it. So these guys just really appear out of touch. And then there's the big thing. And by the way, everyone knows this. This is not a secret. Is every industry greedy because everything is going up? Vegetables are going up 5%. So is every industry in the country greedy? Here's the thing. They want you to believe yes. They do want you to believe yes. They want you to believe that because we are running a capitalist society, a capitalist economy, that everyone is greedy except the government. This is not a conspiracy theory. Inflation is part of the mix. Inflation is how the government is going to change our economy. That's what they wanted to do. AOC's 5-page Green New Deal defined all of this, and they are following the recipe. The only problem they're having, people see it, and they don't like it. Kind of like a lot of people saw AOC's Green New Deal, and they thought it was crap. Do you think it's an accident that the cost of cars, new cars, used cars, hotels, and gas have gone up? No, it's not. Barack Obama told us to change our habits when it comes to travel because it's better for the environment. AO said we needed to stop using fossil fuels. She's still saying it. Joe Biden is proving it. He cancels all of our oil contracts. He cancels our pipeline contracts. All of this stuff allowed us to be a net exporter of oil. We had so much, and now we're running out. This didn't happen during the Trump administration. This happened the second Joe Biden walked into office. And meanwhile, he allows Russia to build their pipeline, the Nord Stream pipeline. Do you think it's a mistake that the price of meat and milk are going up? No, it's part of the Green New Deal because cows fart. And they create, I don't know what you're gonna do with all the cows. I have no idea what you're gonna do with all the cows. Let's just say we stop eating meat, which means we have cows. Cows like to produce. Cows are gonna be around and they're gonna continue to fart. I'm pretty sure. They want to change our behavior. This is part of the deal. This is why you have people like Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Joe Biden, Jen Psaki saying that inflation is not really much of an issue. Chuck Schumer. Just last week, that broad Nancy Pelosi sat back and said Biden's doing a great job because this is what they want. Change the economy. Change the behavior of people. COVID goes with this. The mask mandates, the vax mandates, all of this goes with control. The media is saying inflation is not much of an issue. And then they give us a lot of puff opinion pieces about climate change, which is why we need to change our economy, according to Norwegian Greta Thunberg. Why we're listening to some 18-year-old dumb bitch really just amazes me. A gal who doesn't even go to school. A gal who's got mental problems. She's disabled. She'd be disabled in the United States. Yet we're listening to her like she knows something. She doesn't know anything. The media has been telling us to lower expectations. For Christ's sake, CNN, they were eating cicadas to show us that cicadas are good for you. And that we should be eating cicadas and stop eating meat. The New York Times, the Washington Post have been telling us for over a year we needed to cut down on our meat consumption because of climate change, because cows fart. We must change ourselves. Meanwhile, don't change China. China can do whatever they want. China produces far more carbon than we do. Far more. It's not even close. The great news with this whole thing, people aren't taking it. You're seeing a kickback right now. Leftists are going to find this out at the ballot box next year. Especially when they keep telling us that we shouldn't travel to see our families during Christmas and Thanksgiving because of this China virus. That we need to have masks on, be triple and quadruple vaxxed in order to get on a plane. This stuff does not sell well. Okay, well, this was a little longer than I thought it would be, but not by much. This is just silly. Germany is going insane. These people are nuts. Okay, I'm just going to read this. I don't have much of a comment on it because it's way too dumb. So CNN Business said this, quote, a man who slipped down the stairs and broke his back while walking from his bed to home office can file a claim on his employer's insurance after a court in Germany ruled that he was commuting at the time. So in other words, if I'm walking from my bedroom to my home office, that's called a commute in Germany. The man, an area sales manager working for a company identified only as RGMBH, was on his way to work from his bedroom, quote, from his bedroom off to his home office 1 floor below, end quote, when he slipped and fractured his vertebrae, according to a statement issued by the court on Wednesday. His employer insurance initially refused to cover the claim, as they should. But because he was walking down the stairs for the first time that day, straight to his home office, the court considered his journey, okay, no quotes there, to be, quote, insured as an activity in interest of his employer as a commute to work. Now walking from one room to the other is considered commuting. This is happening. Now, I got a couple of things when they start doing this, but here's the other question. I noticed he wasn't commuting to the shower to take a shower before he started working. This is trying to normalize home workplaces. Germany is a very leftist country. They've always been Nazis are leftists. They want you to stay at home, and now this is a motivation to stay at home. And if you get hurt at home, it's like you're at work. Now the insurance company has to cover it. Absolutely asinine. Hey, don't be shocked. Again, give a mouse a cookie principle. You watch. That's coming to California. California specifically. California or New York. But that's coming to this country. Because once it happens in Europe, amazingly, like your little pot plant sprouts in the morning, this is going to end up sprouting in this stupid country. Absolutely insane. Okay, go visit my website at dumbassestalkingpolitics.com. Hope you have a great day. I won't be talking to you tomorrow. I will actually take the day off instead of Thursday. I'll talk to you on Thursday. This is Gene, and you've listened to Dumbasses Talking Politics.